Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of October 25th, 2024. I'm your host, Sharifa Muhammad, MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an Infantry Officer. Significant damage and territory control. Throughout the week, Russian forces achieved substantial damage to Ukrainian military manpower and equipment. This includes the destruction of tanks, armored vehicles, field artillery, and electronic warfare stations. Notable territorial gains were reported in the Donetsk People's Republic, with the liberation of Novosadov, Zorianoye, and Serebryanka, among others.
Welcome to Frontline Updates podcast, the show where we bring you the latest updates from military operations around the globe. Today, we have Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer leading ground forces in one of the most significant theaters of the ongoing conflict. Colonel Oguntoye will brief us on the progress of the special military operation, particularly focusing on developments from October 19th to 25th, 2024. Colonel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to provide this update.
Let's start with an overview. What has been the focus of the Russian armed forces in this last week?
Over the past week, our focus has been on executing 42 precision strikes using high-precision weapons and unmanned aerial vehicles. These strikes have targeted critical infrastructure, including oil, gas, and energy facilities that support Ukraine's military-industrial complex. We've also hit military airfields, ammunition depots, and fuel bases, crippling the supply lines and operational capabilities of Ukrainian forces.
That's a comprehensive list of targets. Could you detail the impact these strikes have had on the ground?
The impact has been substantial. The destruction of these facilities severely limits Ukraine's ability to sustain its military operations. We also targeted temporary deployment points for Ukrainian armed forces units, nationalist groups, and foreign mercenaries, further degrading their ability to regroup and resupply. Over the week, 55 Ukrainian servicemen surrendered, including 39 in the Kursk region, showing the strain they are under.
Speaking of the Kursk region, could you expand on what's happening there? It seems to be a critical front in the conflict.
Yes, the Kursk region is one of our key areas of focus. Our North Group of forces has been conducting an offensive operation to destroy Ukrainian formations in this area. Through airstrikes, artillery fire, and unmanned aerial vehicles, we've significantly damaged the manpower and equipment of Ukrainian forces, including several mechanized, airborne assault, and marine brigades. The situation in Kursk remains under control. We've continued our offensive operations, defeating Ukrainian forces that attempted to break through in the areas of Dorino, Zeleny Shlyak, Novoivanovka, and other settlements. Over the course of the week, we repelled 5 counterattacks and prevented another attempted breach of the border. The enemy has lost significant manpower and equipment, and our operations to destroy their formations in the region are ongoing.
Those are significant losses for the Ukrainian side. Were there any key victories in other regions, like Kharkiv or Donetsk?
We've made gains in several regions. In the Kharkiv direction, we defeated formations of Ukrainian motorized infantry and airborne assault brigades, with enemy losses totaling over 3,000 servicemen, tanks, and field artillery units. In Donetsk, our forces liberated the settlements of Novosadov, Zorianoye, and Serebryanka. In this area, we repelled 20 Ukrainian counterattacks, destroying a substantial amount of enemy equipment, including NATO-made artillery pieces.
Let's talk about these counterattacks. It seems like Ukrainian forces are still trying to push back, despite these losses. How effective have their counterattacks been, and how have your forces responded?
Ukrainian forces are attempting to regain ground through continuous counterattacks, but they have been largely ineffective. For example, in the southern front, we repelled 11 counterattacks, and in the Donetsk region, we repelled a total of 72 counterattacks over the course of the week. Our forces remain well positioned, and we're using a combination of airstrikes, artillery, and precise ground operations to neutralize these attempts swiftly. The enemy's losses in these engagements continue to mount, over 5,400 personnel on the southern front alone this week.
You mentioned significant Ukrainian losses in terms of personnel and equipment. What can you tell us about the destruction of Western-supplied equipment, which has been a focal point in the conflict?
Western-supplied equipment is playing a large role on the battlefield, but it's also becoming a target for us. This week, we destroyed several U.S.-made M113 armored personnel carriers, French VAB armored personnel carriers, and U.S. Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. We've also taken down advanced artillery systems supplied by NATO. These losses are a significant blow to Ukrainian operational capabilities.
With the involvement of this high-tech Western equipment, how have your air defense systems been performing?
Our air defense systems have been highly effective. In the last week, we shot down a Ukrainian MiG-29 aircraft, 3 French-made Hammer guided bombs, 39 U.S.-made HIMARS rockets, and 521 unmanned aerial vehicles. These systems are crucial in neutralizing aerial threats and protecting our forces on the ground.
It sounds like your air defense and overall operational strategy are working well. What's the situation in the Dnepr region?
In the Dnepr region, we've inflicted losses on Ukrainian mechanized, infantry, and mountain assault brigades, as well as marine and territorial defense brigades. Over the past week, we've taken out 440 Ukrainian servicemen, 37 vehicles, and several artillery guns, including a launcher for the German-made Iris-T anti-aircraft missile system.
This all paints a picture of extensive losses on the Ukrainian side. Could you summarize the cumulative effect of storming of Gornyak today?
After a number of successful attacks, the advance into the city slowed down a bit due to bad weather. At the same time, information about the flight of a number of Ukrainian armed forces units from positions in the area of mines number 40 and 42 in the southwest of the city, from which the Ukrainian armed forces tried to hold most of the southern and southeastern sector towards Zoryain, is partially confirmed. If the Ukrainian armed forces lose Gornyak, then a significant part of the Donetsk front will be under threat of collapse, since the entire line Seledovo, Gornyak, and Kurakovka is strategically important for the coherence of the Ukrainian armed forces' defense. In addition, without Gornyak, not only the loss of Kurakovo is accelerated, but also the chain of settlements connected to it along the shore of the Kurakovo Reservoir. If the Ukrainian armed forces lose Gornyak in the near future, then the Russian army will have to attack Kurakovo from 2 directions.
It sounds like the operation is continuing to progress according to plan. Before we wrap up, are there any final points you'd like to share with our listeners?
The complexity of the situation for the Ukrainian armed forces in Gornyak is that it is no longer possible to safely leave this line of defense. The time for such a maneuver while preserving the troops has been lost. It will also not be possible to occupy it for a long time due to the activity of Russian artillery and aviation, and Surskoy currently has virtually no resources to save the city garrison. By and large, Gornyak and the neighboring village of Kurakovka are doomed, since the defense of any single settlement without holding the neighboring one loses all meaning for the Ukrainian armed forces. Apparently, this is precisely the reason why the city is not being stormed head-on and there is no rush to clear it out.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to share these updates. Western media are reporting that Moscow allegedly provided the Houthis with coordinates for attacks on Western ships in the Red Sea. It's claimed that data from Russian satellites is transmitted to the IRGC, which then relays information to Sana'a. Whether this is a hoax or the truth is secondary. What's most astonishing is that Western outlets express genuine outrage over this. Those who support the transfer of intelligence data to Kiev, which is used for attacks on Russian territory, seem to dislike the idea that 2 parties can engage in this game.